What's up, everybody? This is Case Study QB. We are here back again, the political junkies. I got Dave, Johnny, David, and we got a guest person today, Chris, who he's going to be, I promoted him in our tweet that he's going to be talking to us about union strategy. He was a union organizer, and he did the opposite of what the FBI did, or maybe the same thing, but it was for the opposite side. The FBI for the right, they were infiltrating civil rights organizations, the Black Panthers, on behalf of Wall Street, the establishment, while Chris was infiltrating companies on behalf of the left, trying to turn those corporations, companies into a union company. So it's called Sultan. He's going to talk about that later in the show. I think that's a very interesting conversation. And then he's also going to talk about he's running for the city council in Aurora, Colorado. So let's go around the horn and say what's up to the people. Dave, what's going on?
Hey everybody, glad to be back. Super excited to chat with Chris and Johnny and David and you. So it'll be fun.
Gonna be fun. Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm just excited to talk to some like-minded people and just talk about what's going on and explain all this salting stuff because it's fun to talk about.
Awesome, can't wait. Johnny.
Hey, long time no see. We've been off for a few weeks, so we got a lot to talk about. Yep.
Got a lot to talk about, and I think I didn't tell Johnny, or I don't know if I told David yet, but we're gonna take May off. Even though we just took 3 weeks off. For personal reasons, don't have to go into it too much. But also, I'm going to be buttoning up my initiative, the Mutual Aid Party. I'm going to be buttoning up that, and hopefully we'll be launching after next month. But it's a good time to take a break. All right, David.
Hello, it's good to be back. Thank you for having me back. It's good to see you all. It's nice to talk to another Coloradan. So yeah, it's good to be here, Case. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, so let me bring up. I have this up, but yeah, why not? I'll show Chris's wonderful mug face here as he is running for the Aurora City Council. So you can definitely check out his website. His website is in. If you can see, it's next to his name in that label. But tell us the name is roadsforaurora.com.
Yes.
Right, Chris? All right. Awesome. So let's go through some tweets as well. Boom. Got a couple stuff here to talk about. Bring this
Anyone know this man?
Can everybody hear it?
Yep.
All right. Unfortunate.
Jesus.
Yeah. I just want to say something real quick. It was a quick TikTok, but it just goes to show you how I think I forgot if I showed it, if it was a clip on the show. But I remember Laffer. I think it was from the Laffer. He's famous for doing the Laffer curve, and he was talking. And we were talking about in the context of how France, Macron is trying to increase the retirement age from 62 to 64, and they're all uprising and having protests. And there was the CNN host is saying, "Man, they just increasing it 2 years. I mean, what's the big deal?" And then Laffer was saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm still working." He was on Fox, and he was saying, "I'm still working, and I'm 80 or whatever." But of course, he's just talks for a living. He just goes on shows. He might write books. He was in the Reagan administration. He's not out there like doing jackhammering. He's not out there in the coal mines. He's not out there doing hard labor. And here's an example of an old man who, unfortunately, who knows what his financial situation is, where he should have retired already, but he has to work. It's absolutely nuts. So let me go to David. What you think about this?
Yeah, it makes me really sad. I know I've mentioned it before, but I was like, it reminds me probably a couple months ago now when I was shopping and I was talking to the cashier who was telling me that this was her retirement job. And so I think about our own like retirement age to be like eligible for full Social Security benefits at age 67. And now the US is talking about raising it to 70. Like I would love to be, I want to know where all of us are advocating for, I'd love to lower it.
Yeah, 100%. Dave, what you think?
Yeah, I think what really bothered me so much, or what it made me think about, was the fact that it looked like he potentially had kyphosis or whatever, the issues when your spinal cord is curved excessively. And I think something like that doesn't just happen overnight. And so I think about our lack of health care. Had he had access to that long time ago to potentially address that issue, now he wouldn't be living in what looks like 70s, 80s, and directly making it worse by having to work and slave over this. He literally looked like he was about to pass out. So it's kind of like we look at the end result, but there's so many steps before we get there.
Yeah. Maybe. Johnny, what you think, buddy?
Oh no, I was just thinking that he said lowering the retirement age. If you think about how long people actually spend working, they I don't think anybody should be spending 60 years of their life working.
Yeah. What you think it should be? 40?
I think retirement age should be 55.
55?
And I don't care what you do after that.
Oh, we got a no-cow zone. No-cow zone.
50, we hear 50.
Yeah.
We're down to 44.
Yeah.
44, get 50.
Let me hear Dave real quick, and then I'm going to go to Chris. Dave, what you think?
So, no, David and I both, we're like, listen, retirement age should be like 35 to 40.
Yes.
Because at
Nobody
this
wants
point,
to work anymore.
nobody wants to work. But hold on, I want to be really specific. Well, while it's funny, intentionally it's because with the advent of automation and AI and all these things that could unfortunately have negative consequences, the benefit should be that people are not just doing labor that's simply toiling around purposely without purpose. So my whole thing is like, I would love that by the age of 35 to 40, you can then just transition, if you have not been able to before, into passion projects that make you feel like you're contributing to society and things you want to do and wake up and feel happy, and we can have a stipend for that once you get to that point.
All right, I'm giving my opinion, but I want to go to Chris first.
Yeah, seeing that, it really hit me because, like, my dad just retired recently. After working for, my dad's been like I don't know what they call them, like convenience stores or something like that, like Circle K. So my dad's been like a manager for one of those places for like the past 30 years. Before that, did like construction worked from like the state highway department and stuff like that. Just always had a bunch of manual labor type jobs. And now he's old, has some health issues and stuff like that. He's recently retired, and like hearing him just kind of complain to me about like how hard it is in retirement financially, because you're getting that little bit of money. You're not getting that money you used to. And when you're not getting paid, like most people in this country don't have like millions of dollars in a 401k. They weren't making six figures most of their life. So like when they retire, they don't have much. And if you still own, like if you're still having to pay rent or pay your mortgage after you retire, like you are just like basically barely getting by. And the way we treat our elderly, like, it's like people, like we just don't care for elderly people. We have no respect for them. Like we just don't care about them. And it's like, the way you treat,
use and throw away.
Exactly. The way you treat your young people literally says everything about you as a society. Like,
I totally agree.
You look at how we treat our old and how we treat our young. It's just like, it's just disgraceful to me. And we got to do better. And, we could easily lower that, because the one thing that like I didn't even know about, and I follow politics like for going on 20 years now. I follow it like every single day, checking the news, like really following it. I didn't even know about this until the past year or two, because you never hear the media or Democrats ever talk about this when they talk about Social Security. If you make over $400,000, you don't pay any of that towards Social Security. Yep. So like me, I pay whatever it is, 10, 15% towards Social Security or whatever it is. Rich people that are making millions and billions of dollars, they don't pay a single dime into Social Security after $400,000. If we just change that one little thing, we could easily lower the retirement age by 5 or 6 years, and people could be good in retirement, and we wouldn't have to worry about Social Security running out of money ever. But nobody ever talks about that.
Before I go to Dave, let me just give a shout out to the chat. Mastermind Hour, the Jammin', what's up? And A Gamer for Life is in the building. Much love to you all. And I see Kimberly. Take your time and jump in whenever you're ready. Dave, you got the floor.
I really just wanted to respond, Chris. You said something in your statement about your father that stuck out to me. You said, he's having a lot of health issues now, and he's trying to, get the care he needs, and it's not getting paid enough. And that's part of my argument. Why do we get to enjoy our lives when we've spent 30, 40 years deteriorating our body because of all the manual labor we're doing. And then it's like, go have fun, people. And I'm like, no, we should be able to enjoy our lives in the prime of our lives. Our life expectancy is going down. People are committing suicide. There's drug overdoses, etc. Like, we're not guaranteed to even make it to many of these golden years. And they're not golden at this point. They're piss yellow. So
yeah. No, 100%. I totally agree with you. My personal opinion on that is, with automation, in the past, people actually thought that with the amount of information and the amount of the way technology was trending, we would one day have a sort of utopia. There's no such thing as a true utopia, but you would have a utopia where humans don't have to work. You have robots doing a lot of the manual work, a lot of the work so that we don't have to, and then we would be taken care of. Now, I don't know if they envisioned, maybe a UBI or exactly how that would work, but I foresee at some point, the same way you have a right to an education, a right to healthcare, a right to, we have free libraries. In the future, there's going to be robots that will be helping people, and I think there will be a right to each person can have their personal robot. I don't know at what age we'll decide, or whatever age that they can have that at 18 or whatever. But you have that robot that can help you with whatever, and they will be able to be your doctor. The way, especially the way AI is going. So my whole point is, I can foresee us having some kind of sort of UBI. Every person will get, like, let's say $2,000 a month, or we can just have economics that's smarter than me can decide exactly what it is. And then if you want more money on top of that, that's when you can go out and get whatever job is out there. And then even in that job, you wouldn't be doing 8 hours, a 40-hour work week. You do like 4 hours a week or 4 hours a day or something like that. And then you could even retire at the 35 because you're already good and you're getting that UBI and whatever, or maybe you might jump into the workforce for a little bit and jump back out. So I think there's various ways of doing it.
Speaking my language, Case.
David.
Yeah.
David, yeah.
I would love to see an economy that is not reliant on like W-2 employees. So like instead there would still be workers doing these jobs, but every single person would be classified as an independent contractor to own their own labor, set the demands of their working conditions, set the demands of their own hours. And then I was like, what I do in my regular day job, because corporations are actually people, like you can set people up for their labor as corporations, and then you set yourself a W-2 wage from your labor, and then you end up paying less in taxes. And I think that I've started to transform my idea of thinking that the system is going to change when we start to utilize the system the same way that the billionaires do. And so you saw that with GameStop, you see that with GameStop, where when the masses started to utilize the system, then it was a problem. And so I was like, if we mass mobilize to utilize the system the same way that they are, I think that could be completely transformative in not only owning our own means of production and our labor and setting our own hourly rate, but also voting. Because what is it? Like 50% of our tax dollars go to fund wars. If we're promoting peace, one way to promote peace is to pay less in federal tax dollars, because we're saying you can't have as much of our money, and we want to keep that for ourselves in order to give it to people directly. That's just an idea.
100%. Go ahead, Johnny.
Okay, so a couple clarifications here. One about, and I'm sure you guys knew this was coming. One about the Social Security Trust Fund. There is no such thing. The federal government does not need our taxes to function, okay? We should be past this, especially as leftists by now. We all know that the federal government is the institution that creates the money that we all use and pass out in the game. So it is impossible, and even Alan Greenspan said this to Paul Ryan when he was asking how to privatize Social Security. He told him that there is nothing to prevent the federal government from creating as much money as it wants and passing it out to somebody. The real question is, will the real resources be available at the time those benefits are paid? Meaning, can they buy food, clothing, shelter? Will those houses and those clothes and that food be available for those benefits to go to use? If not, you get inflation, right? Because you have too much money chasing too few goods. So that is the problem. There is always, we don't have to tax the rich in order to pay for things. We don't have to worry about our money going to pay for war, because they're going to support war whether or not we pay federal taxes or not, because the federal government does not need our taxes in order to spend money, because it creates the money. And this is a fundamental understanding that everybody on this side of the aisle has got to start understanding, because they use these tropes to continue preventing us from doing the things that we're supposed to do with public money. It's all public money. We get to say what gets done with it. Congress has the authority to write the bills that allocate the money, but ultimately the people are the ones that are supposed to decide where that public money goes. And that's the biggest fundamental problem we have. We could give everybody retirement right now, let's say 50, let's compromise. And at 50, you could give them benefits at $2,400 a month. The money, the amount is irrelevant. It's the amount that they have to pay for the resources that are available. So if we put caps on rent, and we put caps on, and we stop giving money as contracts to private companies, and we start making sure that the private for-profit companies, instead of giving the money to them, we're giving them to worker-owned companies, right? And those worker-owned companies are going to be balanced, because some people at the top are not getting all of the benefits of that public money going to that contract, like Elon Musk, right? He's a billionaire because all the public money he gets from these contracts for SpaceX go into his pocket more than they go into the employees. So there's a lot of things that we do from a public standpoint. See, I've started adopting a somewhat of a title of a post-capitalist systems architect, because I am sick. We have to start thinking of the exit strategy from capitalism. Okay, and it's talking about backing out of the things that we do. Like we saw Bed Bath & Beyond go bankrupt. Well, something that we can do right now in our laws is we can make it that any company, any of these current companies that go bankrupt, the employees have first right of refusal to take that company over with public fund support and keep it operational, and then transform it into a worker-owned company. You don't even need the union to worry about it, because it becomes a worker-owned company. It's instantly democratized. So how do we start creating a system that starts looking at how we are responsible with our resources, and stop worrying about the paycheck, the money? Because if you start giving people a UBI, and the ruling class still owns everything, all your money is going to the ruling class.
Good point.
You have to shift the power of ownership before you start talking about giving people money for their daily needs.
See, that right there, Johnny, is a whole show in itself. How do we shift?
I didn't want to go off, but I had to correct that thing with where the comes from. The federal.
I let you go off, no problem. You went off, Johnny. Love it.
Clarification, though.
Okay,
David
go ahead,
and I
Dave.
are both really aware of MMT, but just for the sake of this argument of what people in their frame of reference immediately have, since we didn't have a long form. But I appreciate you breaking it down, because it makes it easier.
I understand. I think that the frame of mind is the problem, and that the more we repeat, like Bernie Sanders pisses me off, because he keeps saying, "Oh, we got to tax this. We got to tax. They got to pay their fair share." And he had Stephanie Kelton on his on his campaign. And the only reason he does it is because he believes the public is not willing to accept the reality that of the operations of money, and to say the truth. So he's like, "Oh, everybody believes this. They're all FDR thinkers. We have to do this. We have to tax the rich in order to pay for things." So he goes along and he perpetuates the myth. We're never going to have the society we want if we continue to perpetuate the myth. If we know it, we can't coddle people. That we say we don't coddle them over racism, we don't coddle them over bigotry. Well, we shouldn't be coddling them over their ignorance of how the economy works and where money comes from.
Don, let me, unless Day, I know you wanted to jump in. Are you good, Day? Or
oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cause I'm curious to ask you, Johnny, and then we'll move on. Cause I love talking strategy. So if I was running and I'm thinking like I was Bernie in that position, I know Medicare. Well, in 2016, he put Medicare for all on the map, and that was something that people could kind of grasp right in their name. First of all, everybody knows what Medicare is. So then when you add the for all, it just explains it that easily. Now, do you think MMT, for him to bring that out in 2020, and I think MMT is a complex conversation to have, and I understand what you're saying. You explain it to the American people, and they'll understand it. But you got to be a good articulator. Like, do you think that's a heavy lift, or do you think
No,
if you were running, it should be the number one issue? Or because I think when you run, you have to kind of pick.
I don't think it has to be a number one issue. I don't even think you have to, iterate MMT,
Okay.
MMT, MMT. I think what you have to do is just talk the common sense and say, where does money come from? Hello? Okay, that's the number one basic thing that people have all mixed up. In our state and our local governments, like that's the basic premise. MMT just teaches. People think MMT is policy. It's not. MMT basically just outlines every economic system that's available and says this is how it works. Whether it's a local system, whether they're dependent on another country's currency, or if they're sovereign like the U.S. and they create their own currency. It just explains the mechanism. Then with that knowledge, you can advocate for sensible policies like a federal job guarantee. When you talk about Medicare for all, if you actually talk about a post-capitalist society, Medicare for all is a capitalist policy, because what it aims to do is remove, first of all, it does the good thing of removing the insurance companies, which is great because we don't need them middlemen, but then it just cuts a check directly to who? For-profit contractors from the supply industry, the medical device industry, from the ones contractors who build the hospitals and work on the hospitals. So basically, it's like the military, only you're spending it on healthcare, which is a much better thing. However, economically, you're not doing yourself any good from an.
What do you prefer, NHS type of system with the government?
No, I think that you have to trace it back to all of the suppliers and start nationalizing the suppliers that feed whatever institution it is. So if you have medical suppliers, pharmaceutical companies should not be for profit. It's public health. Why are they making a profit off of people's sickness? So you just make it. You either make them nonprofit or you nationalize them. It's that simple.
I'm about to go to.
With it. Anyway,
I'm about to go today. I got you, my man.
Go, because I'll go crazy.
I got you. I love it. I'm going to go today in a second. Let me just shout out We're Pilgrim, and I want to shout out one more person came in. Bryce Smith. Much love to you. Day, take it away. Oh, unmute yourself.
It's actually David. I'm sorry. It wasn't me that had anything.
Oh, it was. Oh my goodness, my bad. See, when you're producing, I got like 300 browsers open, and I'm going through the comments and then the private chat. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm always trying to think about like how to make my life easier, and and as a result, like how can we reform the systems that we already have to make them work for more of us. And so we just got done with the 2022 tax filing season. So last year we just got done filing our taxes. The standard deduction for a single person in 2022 was $12,950. How about instead of lowering your taxable income by that amount, why don't we just give everybody a little over $1,000 a month as a UBI that way? And it would. And I think that would be more effective instead of just like lowering people's tax liability and then giving them a little bit of a refund at the end of the year.
So similar to the child tax credit, because I know I had my wife and I benefited from the children's child tax credit, and every month we get, I forgot exactly, like $500 a month, but something like that.
Yes, exactly. So it's spread out throughout the course of the year and issued as cash payments instead of saying, hey, I make $50,000 a year, and then you lower that income by $12,000, $13,000, and you're only paying taxes on that like $37,000. Instead, why not just give people the money so that they can use it as they best see fit to help them with bills? It's a system that already exists. People are somewhat familiar with it. I think that might be one potential solution that could be maybe an easy fix. Cool.
I think this is a good spot to move on, but I think that's an excellent point. I think one of the things that was Andrew Yang did with bringing UBI into the ether, because I thought that was a heavy lift, but him focusing on that his whole campaign. That's why, to me, and Johnny probably disagree. Like when you have one thing that you just focus on, everybody just knew him as the UBI guy. He went on Bill Maher the other day. They was like, "Hey, what happened to the Ford parties not doing UBI?" Because he was just so associated with UBI at that point that everybody's surprised now that he's promoting the Ford party and UBI is nowhere to be found. So I know I saw that it seemed to be very effective and Bernie in that 2016 to have that one thing. It would have been cool in 2020 because Medicare for All was already established that he did put that at the top of the list because you can solve like every other problem by explaining MMT. And I'm going to move on. Let me shout out to John Kemper. And I don't know if I said shout out to Mastermind yet, but much love to you as well. And then I'm going to show two more clips, or one more clip, and then we're going to start talking some politics. All right. Where is it? There's this particular clip right here. Boom. You know what? I'm going to play this. This is just to give us into a good mood. This is the United teachers over there in California. They won a 21% wage increase and reduced class size. So I'll play this real quick.
Paychecks and smaller class sizes, part of this tentative agreement which was reached by the LAUSD and the teachers.
Mario Ramirez is live at a school in Beverly Grove with more on the details of this deal. Mario.
Sandra, Roxia, good morning. Not a done deal yet. It still needs to be ratified by the LA Unified Board of Education and voted on by UTLA members, but impacting salary for teachers as well as changes at campuses like Laurel Elementary here in Beverly Grove. And it averted another possible strike, the second this school year. Take a look. You can see the demonstrations when this happened last month. This strike was led by the SEIU Local 99. About 30,000 employees like bus drivers, custodians, and cafeteria workers, joined by another 35,000 teachers with the union in solidarity. Now, that strike shut down schools across the district. The agreement reached with UTLA, the teachers union, includes a 21% wage hike over 3 years, more counselors and mental health support for students on campuses, and reduces class sizes by 2 students in all TK through 12th grade classrooms with an average of about 27 students per classroom. Parents we spoke to, they really like that idea.
All right. So I think we got the point that that was one place that we had a win. Let me see if anybody. Okay, let me go to Chris on this topic.
Just seeing this is kind of wild to me because here in Colorado, for the past couple of years, we've been trying to pass a bill through the state house that would give bargaining rights to all state employees. And our Democratic governor, who is actually more of a libertarian than a Democrat, especially on economic things, he behind the scenes, won't say it publicly, but behind the scenes, let people know he would veto the bill if it included people in the education system, like bus drivers and, non-teachers. Because in Colorado, they have teachers unions, but it's only teachers. So, like, seeing those bus drivers being included in the union, like our Democratic governor has threatened to veto bills that would give those people bargaining rights. Because right now they don't have bargaining rights in our state. So that's kind of wild to see in other states, like, that they're allowed to be unionized, and like that power of solidarity just helps even more.
Yeah, I was definitely impressed to see that even when I don't know if this is the exact situation, but I know it was in the LA that the janitors and stuff they weren't getting what they were supposed to be getting or getting a good wage, and the teachers said, okay, if you're striking, we're striking too. And that type of solidarity was definitely needed. A general strike would be great. So at some point, if we could build up to that level, like how they have in France, we could definitely get huge change done in this country. All right, let me show this other clip. This is the one I wanted to go to. It's just
the robot will be
start over.
both of the police.
NYPD announces the use of robot dogs. This is what's coming.
The robot will be controlled only by trained talent and technical assistance response unit officers and be deployed to assist the issue of emergency service unit in hostage negotiations, counterterrorism incidents, and other situations. Last year,
Wow.
They've had positive success with it.
Says hostage situation, counterterrorism. Now I remember a situation where I believe this is the only time in America that we had a drone strike. Because in other countries we do drone strikes all the time, unfortunately. But there was a person that was, I forgot if he was shooting, sniping, or what exactly was the crime that he was committing. But they sent a little, it wasn't this type of robot at the time. It was like a little drone on a roll on wheels, and it went over to the person far off, and then it exploded, killing the guy too.
That was in Dallas, right?
I wonder if it was in Dallas. I'm just remembering this from memory. I know it happened years ago, and that's probably the only time that I know of, that we know of, Chris, that a drone strike happened in America. And I mean, like, if that's a hint of the direction we're going in, imagine this robot coming after you, whether you're innocent or not, because there's a lot of time. This is like judge and jury going on right there. It's going to get to that level. And unfortunately, everything that we do outside of the country eventually comes back on us. Let me say what's up to my buddy Kimberly as you come on, and say hi. You want to jump in here? Just say hi to the people and how you doing. Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah, I can hear you
Hey
now.
guys,
Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I'm chilling.
You know how it is in the chat. If you want to put one, if you want to speak on it or anything or any topics. All right. So now, you know what? A half an hour flew by in like a blink, and I was gonna talk politics. We're not talking about Tucker Carlson. We're not talking about Don Lemon. Anybody could go to anywhere else to talk about that. But I was going to talk about, since we were going for 3 weeks, Marianne Williamson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But I want to make sure we give enough time to our guest, Chris. So once again, I'm going to introduce Chris, who was a union organizer. He's going to be talking to us about the technique of salting, where you infiltrate a company, a corporation, a store, to try to see the lay of the land and try to unionize. So he knows a lot more details than I, so I'll give you the floor. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, thank you very much. So I did union organizing for about 4 years. It's kind of what brought me to the city where I'm in now. I live in the city that where most people that work at like Denver's International Airport live. It's kind of crazy because Denver's not really that big of a city. I think it's like 600,000 or 700,000 people, but their airport is, I think, the 5th most busiest airport in the country. Because so many airlines use it as like a kind of connecting hub for all the cross country flights and stuff like that. So it's a really, really busy airport. And United Airlines basically controls the airport here. I think they have like 70% of all flights that go out of this airport are United Airlines. And, most people, when they think of these big airlines like American, Delta, United, you think they're all unionized because all the people that you see and think about are unionized and have been for decades, like the baggage handlers, the customer service people, the pilots, the flight attendants, all unionized. But they're with United Airlines, since they serve food on their planes, like they have actually hot meals and stuff like that, because Southwest just does like snacks and stuff, so they don't really have food. But United still does food, and they have a catering department. They're not unionized. Well, they weren't. They are now. But they weren't unionized. And coincidentally, their workforce was like over 50% women. It was like 85% people of color, the majority of which were immigrants. A lot of people were working there specifically for the flight benefit you get when you work with an airline. Because like if you work for a flight air company like United Airlines that flies internationally, you get really cheap international flights. So, and United Airlines is the only American company that flies to a lot of the Pacific Islands, like Guam and this country I never even heard of until I started working there called Chuuk. What's the other one? Solomon Islands, Marshall Islands. A lot of these countries where the United States after World War II did atomic bomb testing. And as a result of that, they gave people from these countries this special visa designation where they can come to America and work without actually having to apply for a visa. But the catch is when they come here and work, they're not able to get any benefits or not any welfare. So like if they're getting paid poverty wage, they don't get food stamps. They don't get they can't get Medicaid or any of that stuff for their kids. You know, all these different things that Americans can get. These people that come over here and work for these United Airlines, they weren't able to get any of these kind of benefits. So I started learning about like what was going on there. And I a little background on me, like I've been living in Colorado for about 5 or 6 years at that point, kind of doing what a lot of people in the millennial age group are doing, just, you know, trying to figure out how to survive in this, what kind of feels like a post-apocalyptic economy after the 2008 crash and all that stuff, and just realizing the American dream was bullshit. And, you know, I worked for a couple of like bigger companies. Like I did tech support for Apple for a little while. And that was the job that really kind of like opened my eyes, because I realized Apple was making like $20 billion a year in profit, but they were subsidizing their tech support through 2 different companies to avoid paying any kind of benefits or anything like that. And it made me really start wanting to unionize. But I didn't really know how to unionize on my own without a union and stuff like that. I was looking for a job for like doing nonprofit work, and I came across this job ad that said organizing apprenticeship with this union here, Unite Here. This is kind of their organizing model. And I met with an organizer, and he kind of explained the deal to me. It was like, you know, you're going to get a job at this poverty wage job, which was United Airlines. According to the company and your coworkers, you are just a regular worker, but you're going to be meeting with an organizer. You're going to be like giving them reports. You're basically, you know, kind of like the way the CIA or infiltrates groups, and the way the FBI kind of infiltrated a lot of the black civil rights movements, and kind of took down like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King's groups and stuff like that. You're going in and you're getting intel, you're feeding it to your union organizer, and they're mapping everything. Like they had an entire map of like every single worker that worked in that building, and it was like 600 people. They had every single person's name, their shift, what department they worked in, who they were connected to at work, because you're trying to identify leaders, and those are the people you're trying to recruit to eventually meet with the union organizer and get them to kind of join you in organizing and unionizing this place, all in secret outside of work. And there's a part in there, like once you finally meet somebody and you kind of get to know them a little bit and you hang out with them a little bit, then you there's like a test portion where I forget what it is, but you give them some kind of because they meet with the organizer, and the organizer doesn't give them everything to where they can like blow up the whole thing. Like they give them just a little bit of information, and then you, as the kind of salt or whatever, like you go to work and you kind of find out like does this person go to work and start telling people stuff at work, because you got to make sure they're going to keep the secret too. And you know, there were a couple of people that didn't do too good a job at keeping the secret, but for the most part, you did, or the people did. Your goal is to get like one leader for every 10 people at work. So I think we had like 550, 600 people. Our goal was to get like 55 leaders. Plus we had like 5 or 6 salts or something like that. And it took from like August to about January to accomplish that. So not that long in the grand scheme of things. And then once you get like all of your leaders covered, you have like a big meeting, because you never get to meet anybody else. Like even me as a salt, like I didn't get to meet the other people. Like the organizers would tell me their names, but I never actually got to meet them.
And every day, just real quick, just because this is a fascinating story, you're going into work as one of these employees, right? You're doing the job, you're feeding or you're cooking, or you said it was culinary for the airport. So you're going in and working at this crappy job while you're doing this behind the scenes thing. Anyway, continue. I just wanted to make that clear. Yeah.
So in college, I worked in our dorm kitchens in college. It was one of my 3 jobs I had in college. So this catering place was like, oh, you have food experience, like yay. Because they had 4 departments at this place. They had warehouse, because like all the food comes in on like semis and these big pallets, so you're unloading it with forklifts and all that stuff. So they had a warehouse job. They had the food production people, which is where most of the women worked. Like it was pretty much like 99% women. And of course, like the food production is the lowest paying job because they consider it unskilled and like all that stuff. But that was where they started me off, because I had food production experience. They started me off there, and I didn't have any warehouse experience. So they started me off there, and I remember the first like week, every single day when I went home, like my back, because I'm 6'2", like I'm working with these women that are like, I don't know if you've been around too many like Pacific Islanders, but they're not tall people. So like I'm working with all these women that are like 4'10" to like 5'2", and everything, all these tables and stuff are set up for their height. So I'm working side by side with them and like having to hunch over and like do all this stuff. And I'm going home every day. My back is killing me. Like I'm just like wanting to, I'm like, I go home and I'm just like, I don't want to go back the next day. Like I couldn't even stand up straight to walk out to the car when I left, like my first week. Every day I'm like, I just go home and just lay on my back for like until I just passed out. And they're so short staffed too. Like they're always having mandatory overtime every day. So you go in, they tell you it's a 40-hour job, but like you go in, because the hours at the airport are like really early too. So you're starting at like 4 o'clock in the morning, something like that, right? Your shift's supposed to be 4 to 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then they come around at like 11:30, 12, and they're like, hey, we need 2 hours overtime today. We need 3 hours overtime today. You never knew what time you were going to get off work every single day. And a lot of these people, they got kids. So I was like, how is this working with like people with kids? Like you never know what time you're going to get off. They got to arrange babysitters. I don't know. It was just wild. I didn't have kids at the time. So, I went in, I'm doing all this, and it's just every day just, sucks. But the good thing about it is like, I think the reason it's such a brilliant organizing model is because a lot of times what happens is, like organizers are usually getting paid like, I mean, they're not getting paid 6 figures, but a lot of the unions I'm familiar with, especially the bigger unions, they pay their organizers decent. They're getting paid like a, lower middle class salary, something like $50,000, $60,000 a year. They're not doing this work. So they're coming up to workers as kind of like an outsider and trying to get workers to like trust them and feel their pain or whatever. I'm going up to my coworkers like we've been through it together. Like I know exactly what your frustrations are, how much this company sucks. So when it came time for me to try to like figure out like how to motivate my coworkers to really want to unionize, because a lot of them are afraid too, because when you're getting paid, I think these jobs started off at the time, minimum wage was 10.20 or something like that. So that's what I was getting paid when I started. And then the raises are nothing. They're like 25, 30 cents a year or something like that. So you'd have women that have been there for 25 years were making $12 an hour. And, and the organizers on the outside, most of them were coming from Yale, because that's where this union I work with, like, I don't know, I think they started at Yale, or I don't know, somehow they're really big in New Haven, Connecticut. They're also really big in Vegas. They control a lot of the hotels in Vegas. I think they're big in Seattle too. They have like these little cities where they're really big, but here in Denver, they don't really have much. So a lot of the people I was organizing with, they were white people from Yale. They came from very upper middle class families. Like mom was a doctor, dad was a lawyer type situation or something like that. And they read some theory in college, and then they think they know working class struggle or how to talk to working class people, things like that. Whereas like me, what motivated me to do this was like, I grew up with a single father. I saw my dad have to work multiple jobs. I saw my dad have to do some things that were illegal to get by. I saw my dad get arrested for doing some of those illegal things, which is why I'm like, fuck the war on drugs. And I grew up kind of hovering that line between like poverty and being poor my whole life. And then I thought going to college was going to fix that, but it didn't. And just, I'd been around poor people my whole life. Like it wasn't it wasn't something I had to learn what poor people think, like how to act or how to interact with poor people. Like I was like, oh, these are my people. Like I'm used to this. Like, so it was kind of wild to me, like having people try to explain to me what the mentality of poor people is who have never been poor. Um, and me trying to push back on that constantly and just being like, look, man, this isn't like, you don't know what it's like to be poor. So stop trying to lecture me on this. And that was kind of like a struggle I had with the organizers at times, but um, we got the union, and the way it kind of works is like you have to get the way union organizing works is like everybody thinks like you just ask for the union or get enough people to sign up for a union, you have it. That's not quite how it goes. So you have to get I forget the percentage because it's been like 4 or 5 years now. But
before you go into how to create a union, can I jump in? We got a couple questions for you. So the first person that David got the first question.
Yeah, so I'm curious. So I know that Colorado has at-will employment, and so I'm curious if you ran into any threats of like having your employment ended or anyone else's employment ended by the at-will kind of statutes within the Colorado labor laws.
Yeah, I'm definitely about to get to that part. That happens.
Okay, great. Yeah,
that happens in the next portion.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. So we're going to get to that. Kimberly got a question.
Yeah, I guess. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering how does Unite here keep you guys motivated? Because I had a couple folks who did salting here in Rhode Island with Unite here, and they kind of just ended up super dispirited and then quit.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, there's two ways, I guess. Like I said, for me, my motivation was different than most of the people I salted with because my background was different than theirs. So my motivation was like, I guess number one for me, like my heroes that like the people that kind of inspired my politics and just my worldview was, number one, reading the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was in college. Just kind of, I don't know, just my head exploded and I was just saw the world differently after that. So, and then when I learned about like the true Martin Luther King Jr., not like the one you kind of learned about in public school, but like really like reading his autobiography and just understanding like, his mentality, his approach to, how he went about trying to break down this, attack the system and things like that. I saw this as like, I've always understood class solidarity because, I just grew up in a household where luckily I was raised in a household that's been like generations of kind of working class people. Many were in unions back when unions were a thing in the Midwest. They're not really so much anymore, but I think my grandfather had a union job and like my uncle was in a union. And I've always just been taught to like really respect like the working class and distrust the not working class. So like, I kind of saw this whole thing with me, even though like there was a racial component to it because like there were maybe like 15% of my coworkers were white, and most of them happened to be in the transportation department, which were the people that drive the trucks to the airplanes, and then the truck raises up and they load all the stuff onto the plane. So those were the only people from my work or from my catering department that the customers would ever see. Most of them happened to be white. I didn't work in that department though. Like all my coworkers, I was the only white person in my department, like most of the time when I worked there. So there was that kind of component to it, but for the most part, like I've just kind of realized like everywhere I've lived that like working class people like kind of respect working class people. Like once they kind of realize like, the struggle and like you're not I don't know, you're not on that white savior thing, or like you don't kind of look down on other people. Like there's respect there, and like I didn't really feel like it was too hard to overcome, but it was definitely there in the very beginning because like they see me coming in as like, here's this white dude. What are you about? Like we need to kind of see what you're about before like we're gonna kind of trust you. But then once you work with people for a while and they kind of realize like who you are, like they just kind of opened up and like we all kind of got along and everything. But for my coworkers, or not my coworkers, my fellow salts, they were coming to it from a different place where like they were coming to it from like they were all Marxist, like DSA members, and their motivation was more like just kind of like a blind, I don't know, kind of like a blind obedience to like socialism in a way. Like one of them was like an outright communist who kind of used the DSA as like, I don't know, like basically a right wing group in a way, but that he was a whole other story. But theirs was more kind of from that background where like they were younger too, because I started doing this when I was 35. Like all the people I was doing this with were, 23, 24, 25, like fresh out of college. And they were coming at it from a different place. But, all of us had the same end goal, though, was to try and provide, a voice to the voiceless, which is kind of how I saw it. And, I would just kind of, for me, what made me stay motivated, because it sucked. Like, there were so many times where I was just like, man, this fucking sucks. Like, I hate everything about this. Like, I'm not, because I was like, when I was doing this too, like, where I live is not cheap. I was getting paid nothing. And every time I would get my paycheck every 2 weeks, I would have between $50 and $100 in my bank account. Like, that's how I was living to do this. So, I mean, obviously when you're hovering around that, like that kind of financial situation, like there's a lot of stress. You're stressed out all the time. And like, I couldn't work overtime at work because that's what a lot of my coworkers would have to do. And, it's a 40-hour week job. They're having to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week just to like financially get by. I couldn't do that because outside of work, I was putting all this free labor into the union and like organizing and going around and doing house visits and all these things. So I couldn't do overtime to make up for that. So it was frustrating, but like for me, like I stayed motivated because like I knew in the end I'm fighting for liberation of working people. And, the people that I consider heroes, like they sacrifice far more than I'm sacrificing right now. So like if they could do it, I can do this. Like that's kind of how I looked at it.
Nice. I don't know if you have one last thought to finish, but I'm going to go to Dave for the final question, and then I want to go back to you about how to unionize, and then go on from there. So, Dave.
Oh yes, I'm fascinated by this. I know one point. Did you say that there is a large majority of immigrant workers in there? Because I was curious how their immigration status did or did not impact their ability to unionize.
That's a good question. Yeah, well, I guess the thing is like, because Unite here usually does. I think they specifically target places that usually are very heavily immigrant and like mostly women of color. Usually, it's like kind of like cafeteria workers at like universities. They have a lot of those. A lot of casinos. They do casinos and hotels. A lot of those places are more likely to have like people that are undocumented. So they're very familiar with organizing around that. At the airlines, because of all the background stuff you have to go through just to get the badge to work at the airline, there are no like nobody there has questionable documentation status, or like their immigration status is definitely on point because you can't get the clearance to work for the airline if any of that stuff's in question. So that wasn't really an issue where we worked. But usually that's something they do have to deal with. It just wasn't for the airlines.
Cool. Dave, you good? All right. So I want before you go to how to unionize, I came across this interesting video on Twitter that I am going to play, and then you tell me how accurate it is. Okay. All right.
Workplace at sonic speed.
I'll start it over.
Hey there. I'll show you how to unionize your workplace at sonic speed. Talk to your coworkers. Discuss your shared concerns and find common goals. Research and choose a union that fits your needs. Share the info with your coworkers. Sign those union cards. When you've got enough support, file a petition with the National Labor Relations Board. Win the election and negotiate a contract. Together, you'll make your workplace better and fairer for everyone. Gotta unionize fast.
All right. That's why they want to ban Twitter right there.
They make it sound so easy, dude. Why isn't everyone just doing that?
Everybody just do it. But Chris, what you think about that? And add anything to it that you want to.
I'll say, how do I say this? That is, I guess, the very basic. That'd be like the Cliff Notes version of it.
Okay.
I will say, if you follow that plan, you will lose 99% of the time.
Explain.
Well, yeah. So, like, the part I was going to get to was, so you identify your leaders and everything, right? And the reason we keep everybody in secret and try to make it a secret is because the moment the company hears whispers of unionizing, they start the anti-unionizing campaign, and they start breaking a lot of labor laws because there's no real consequences for it, and they scare the shit out of your coworkers. And once they do, so that thing says you have to have 30% to file to have a union election, which is true. But what we did was we had like 75, somewhere between like 75 and 80% of people signed up for well, how do they say it? You sign a card that says you want to have a union election, because that's the first step. Is you have to sign a card that says you want to have a union election. Now, if your
what they call it, a check card?
I forget what they call it, but it's just like a tiny little card, and and you have to, like, we would have people sign the picture and then take a picture with the card, just so the company couldn't say like because the company's going to make up a bunch of lies, and they did all that, and we did it all in one day, because you can't, like, you have all the time in the world to do it, but once the company finds out you're doing it, they go into action immediately. Because what happened with us is we had a meeting where because the first time we actually had everybody come together in one room was the day before we did this. And so everybody comes in the room and everybody's all like, "Oh my God, you're doing this too!" Like, I didn't know. But it's really empowering for the workers, because like for the whole time, like, you're hearing your organizer tell you there's 30, 40 other people doing this. It's not just you, but you never see those people. You never know who they are. You just know it's you, and that's it. And then in this time, you walk in the room and you see all your coworkers that you know, and a lot of them you've known for years. Some of them are your friends, whatnot. So you see everybody and you're like, okay, for the first time you realize like it's not just me. So it's very empowering for the workers. It's probably it's definitely the highlight of the entire organizing process, is that first day, like when you have that meeting and everybody gets to see everybody for that first time. Because then after that you go to work and it's just like a little wink and a nod, like they're cool. Like, this is somebody I can at least vent to, like if something's going down. And it's really helpful. But then the very next day is the day you have to go to work, and you go up to, like, you're only responsible for like going up to the people that are you lead. So like everybody's got like 10, 12 people or whatever it is. You're assigned to go up and talk to those 10 to 12 people and get them to sign their card, right? And when you do that, we have like 75, 80% of people. But the way you got to do it is there's rules to it. You can do it in the parking lot. You can do it in the break room. You can do it in the cafeteria. You can't do it on the work floor. That's illegal. The company can like throw out the union election if you do that. So the union goes over all the rules with you and stuff. And then the company is going to lie to you, though. Like, they're going to come up to you and threaten to fire you. If it happened, I saw it happen. You would tell people like, "Hey, after we get off work today, meet me in the parking lot." And they'd be like, "Is this about the union?" I'm like, "I can't talk about that. Just meet me in the parking lot after work." So then they come out there, you start signing them up, and you see your general manager like looking through her office window, start making phone calls to corporate, like, "Hey, they're unionizing. What the fuck do we do?" And then they send your bosses out there to tell you like, "Hey, you guys got to leave. You can't be out here." And that's why, like, it's your job as a leader to tell your coworkers, like, "Look, they're lying to you. I know for a fact we can't be here." You got to kind of reassure them and everything, and you got to show courage, because their immediate reaction is jump in their car and bolt. And if they go home and they're scared, you are not getting them back. So then you, as a leader, have to go stand up to your boss in front of your coworkers and tell your boss off. And it's a whole thing, and a lot of people get scared. I know even for me, like, I knew what I was doing was perfectly legal, but I had never like confronted members of management at any place I've ever worked like that before. So like my legs are shaking a little bit, and I'm just like, and keep in mind, like I'm telling you, like I got between $50 and $100 in my bank account every single paycheck. I know if I get fired, my first thought is like, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to live? I don't know. Like, the union's not giving me any money. If I get fired, the union's not going to bankroll me. So, and what happened was, at the time, my partner was doing this with me. She got into it with management. She needed to go back into the building to get something out of her work locker, and she asked me to go with her because like management was kind of ganging up on her, because they identify who the leaders are, and then they really target you because they know if they can get one leader to crumble, everybody else gets scared and scatters. So she asked me to go into the building with her, which I did. So I was like, all right, cool. I went into the building with her. I didn't talk to a worker or anything. I just stood by the entrance. The HR person comes up to me and she's like, hey, we told you couldn't come in the building to talk to workers or whatever. I need your badge. And your badge, when they say I need your badge, that basically means they're firing you because that's your ability to get in and out of the building. So I was like, cool, no problem. Gave her my badge. And then for 7 to 10 days, I did not know if I was going to have a job or not. I had to rely on the union because the union's like, don't worry, we're going to get your job back. And I had to go to a meeting with like all of our people. And, obviously some people saw my badge get taken. So they're all talking and everybody's like, Chris got fired for for unionizing. Like, so they're all scared. And then I had to go there and put on that strong face and be like, look, I didn't get fired. The union's going to get my job back. Like, don't worry about this. Keep doing it. And all that stuff, even though deep down inside, I'm like, oh shit, like what if I just got fired? Like I got bills to pay. That's what they, and then after that, there's like, usually it's like a month or two between when you do that part and then when you actually have the union election. But United Airlines lied to the US government and said that we were coercing our employees into signing these cards. So that created like a 9-month investigation, which delayed things. And during that whole time, they're coating the entire building, wall to wall, bathrooms and everything, and these anti-union flyers, like saying that if you vote for the union, your pay could get worse, you could lose your benefits, and all this illegal stuff. They're doing it in like 6 or 7 different languages because we got all these different immigrant groups in there, right? It's the only time they've ever put anything up in different languages. And then the day before the investigators came, because the government did eventually send investigators to come talk to people. The day before the investigators came, they took every fucking thing down off the wall. Like when the investigators showed up, it looked like normal workplace, right?
Wow.
So that's how they do. But luckily, throughout all that, we were able to keep our people strong. We lost some people because people transferred out and stuff like that. Some people quit, and they fired some people too for bullshit reasons. But we were able to keep everybody strong, and we still won our union election with like 72%, something weird like that, which is a really important thing too, because in a lot of states, depending on like the type of place you're union organizing. So if you win with just over 50%, that makes it to where people can opt in or out of the union. You don't want that. You want, if you get like 70 or 75%, then everybody's automatically in the union. And that's what you want, because you don't want to create that situation where people can benefit, kind of like most teachers unions, people can benefit from the union contract, but don't pay union dues. Like that. You don't want those freeloaders. So that's where in that video it was saying 50 plus 1%. Technically that's all you need. But if you do that, you got a really weak union. You want it to be more like 70, 80%.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Chris. Man, this time flew by. It's 9:03 already. And I definitely want to talk about, you know what, if you don't mind, is there anybody that has to run? I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know Day and David said they're good. Johnny and Kimberly, do you have, let's see, another 10 minutes? Because I want to talk about Chris running for City Council of Aurora. All right, I think I got it.
I talk a lot, I ramble.
No, that I already have in mind that I haven't done clips for the Political Junkies in a while because my brain is all over the place. But you gave a lot of great content, and I think there's not a lot that I've seen out there that has to do with Sultan and all the details that you gave. So I'm definitely going to be clipping that and putting it on the YouTube channel. But I definitely want you to talk about your run, and I want to also show your website again over here. Boom, that you're running. And then also you were talking about this person who's running as a Democratic Socialist for mayor of Aurora. So I want you to talk about your campaign and then briefly talk about his, and then we'll end the show.
Yeah. Yeah. So my experience doing that with organizing really kind of opened my eyes to like um, how hard it is for people to get by in this city. Because obviously I was getting by on that salary. My coworkers were as well. And I didn't even have kids. Like some of my coworkers had kids. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow. After this union thing was done, though, um, I was looking at getting a job with the Teamsters. I was going to like start driving like a. There's a company here that has a Teamsters, and they do like kind of like local truck driving routes, not like cross country. So I was like, all right, Teamsters got pension, got free health care. I was like, let's do it. Plus, I knew they were about to take on Amazon, so I was like, maybe when they take on Amazon, I can get in that fight. But this organization that I very shortly before that became a member of called Colorado People's Alliance. It's a racial justice organization based out of Denver. They do a lot of work in like the Denver area and Aurora. Um, they were fighting to increase the minimum wage in the city I'm in right now, and I was kind of getting involved with them because of that. And I was waiting on my start date for this trucker's job. Like they were taking forever. I'd already went through everything, like the drug test, the background check, and all that. But they were just taking forever to get me my start date. And the person I knew who worked for Colorado People's Alliance said, "Hey, we have an opening for an economic justice organizer doing like community organizing work." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds like something I would really enjoy." I was like, maybe I'm not ready to hang up my organizing boots just yet. So I applied for the job. I got it. I started doing economic justice organizing in Aurora, just going around talking to people like door to door. It's a lot of canvassing. Does everybody know what canvassing is? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I was doing a lot of canvassing, and I started noticing like the same things kept coming up in conversations with people. It was like they were concerned about lack of affordable housing. They were
I'm
concerned.
sorry, Chris.
Oh,
can you just, for people we know on the panel,
sorry.
but for people in the audience, I was just thinking about
Yeah.
somebody in the audience might say, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead and describe it real quick.
Yeah, so canvassing is basically, you go out to the community, you go and just knock on somebody's door. You don't know this person, they're a stranger. It's kind of like how old school organizing used to be, like back in the day, like before we had cell phones and all this stuff and all that. You would just knock on somebody's door, they would answer the door. I say, "Hello, I'm Chris. I'm with Colorado People's Alliance. We're just trying to talk to members of the community about X, Y, and Z and kind of find out like what people in the community are, what their issues are, like what they want to see changed, all those kind of things." And I kept hearing over and over again the same concerns. It was like affordable housing. Here in Aurora, it's a very diverse city. Colorado as a whole is extremely white, but Aurora is a very diverse city. We have tons of immigrants because it's proximity to the airport. So like most people that work out at the airport live in Aurora. So we have a huge Ethiopian population, a huge Korean population, Vietnamese population, a number of other like Nigerian population. We have a lot of people like from Sudan that have come over here, people like from Afghanistan and Iraq, like all these different immigration waves that have come to America like over the years. Like they've all just in Colorado, they've all kind of ended up in Aurora. So it's this huge melting pot. It's one of like the most diverse cities in the country. And so as a result of that, we have a huge problem with our police force because despite the diversity of our city, our police force is still overwhelmingly white and Republican and like just that kind of thing. So we had a very notorious incident here a couple of years ago involving a young man named Elijah McClain. I think it made national news very shortly after. Oh man, I feel bad. I'm forgetting his name. The guy with the knee on his neck. Oh God, why can't I remember his name? I feel stupid now.
George Floyd? Or?
Yes.
Yeah,
right after George
right.
Floyd, our Elijah McClain thing happened. Very, where police, he was a young black man. I think he was like 20-ish, right around just out of high school age. For some reason, he jogged with the ski mask on. It was like his thing. I don't know why. I can't remember why, but I think he was like slightly
trying
autistic.
to go home. He was autistic, right?
Yeah, he liked to go jogging at night, and he wore a ski mask.
I remember that.
Somebody called the cops. They saw a black guy with a ski mask coming out of a convenience store. He had just purchased like a bottle of water or something like that. He was jogging home. Police rolled up on him and made no attempt whatsoever to de-escalate the situation. Like they just came in, escalated things, started putting their hands on him. Of course, he resisted, and ended up like them holding him down. They called in paramedics to give him ketamine shots. He ended up dying in the hospital a couple of days later. So it became a huge thing right after George Floyd. There were some protests here, and that's just kind of like one of multiple examples of like some racist nonsense we've had with our police officers, and like they're never held accountable for these things most of the time. So that was something obviously a lot of people were concerned about. And then because of our increasing cost of living and stuff like that, we have had a increase in our homeless population, whereas like 10 years ago when I moved here, Aurora didn't have a homeless population. Now you can't get off any freeway exit or go in and out of a shopping center without seeing homeless people. So those were like the things that people just kept over and over again, like bringing up to me as like their issues. Like these are the things that I'm concerned about and I'd like to see something done about. And the organization I worked for, like we didn't do anything around any of those issues, but through kind of like researching about it and kind of like talking to some people I knew that were already on city council, I found out that all of those issues are issues that city council has the ability to directly impact. But because we have a Republican majority in my city, they weren't doing anything about those. Like our Republican majority, I remember one lady right after this Elijah McClain thing happened, there were some protests. The one that was like really famous and got national news was like they had a bunch of people like playing violins because he liked to play violin. There were a bunch of people playing violin like outside of our city hall, and they were protesting peacefully. And then the cops like started tear gassing people and stuff like that. And so she came to the very next city council meeting wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt and didn't understand why that was offensive to a lot of people. That's the kind of like city council we have in our city. And our city votes overwhelmingly Democrat for Congress, state house, governor, president, but they don't show up to vote for city council elections because they're in off-cycle years. So we've always had a Republican majority on our city council. And, you know, I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, I can't sit around and just not do anything about this. So I talked to the people, or the person who was like the chair of the Democratic Party for my county. I talked to a couple of the people that were already on city council, like Juan Marcano and Allison Coombs is the other open socialist on the council. And, you know, I worked with Crystal Murillo, she's a young Latina who's on our council, who's amazing. And I talked to them and I got their support to run. So decided to run, and here we are. I ran for office, and I was just like, you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like you see, you know, so often you sit back and you think like, why is somebody not doing something about this? And then it just, the light bulb goes off. You're like, shit, I'm somebody. I can do something about this. Like I ain't got to wait for somebody else to step up and like try and fight for change in my city. I can do it myself. So
yeah, 100%. Thank you for running. Anything we can do to support, you know, definitely check out his website, roadsforaurora.com. And also there's a mayor running who's also a Democratic Socialist running for mayor. That it's good to have a group of people run as a slate, because then when you get elected, well, when you're campaigning, you guys can lean on each other for support and in other ways. And then when you do get elected, you can have a slate of votes on the city council that you can actually do some real change. So it's very important to do that. So let's end the show. Thank you all so much for spending this time, and thank you to the panel. Thank you to the audience for, you know, spending, like it's 9:13 now. And let me just give a quick shout out to everybody in the chat: John Kemper, Jesco, Mr. Gamer for Life, Mastermind, Alonesome, and too many to name. Much love to everybody. Real program, Steve. Let my panel give their last outing. But you know what? Let me give a shout out to my Patreon members real quick as well. The Patreon members: Nancy Vancher, Pedro Hernandez, Deborah B, PJ Chris, Akiba Shakita, Zachary Guston, Day and David. Thank you for being our latest Patreon members. I appreciate that. And I'm going to go around. So, Chris, you know, I'm going to leave you for last since you're our guest. Day. Oh, unmute yourself. Let me, okay. Yeah, you can unmute yourself, buddy.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people, you can check out David and my podcast, Call Me Limbo, wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a laugh, have a thought, share it, and yeah, new episode coming this week, hopefully tomorrow.
Definitely check that out. Kimberly.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any new projects, but I'm always glad to be here. So
Yeah. And Johnny. And then David. And then Chris.
Let's see, what is it? Wednesday or Thursday? I'm going to be on Survivor Solidarity, talking about surviving trauma, how to overcome that, and keep it from affecting your life on a day-to-day basis. And other than that, man, it was fun. It was nice meeting you, Chris. I followed you on Twitter. Follow me. We'll have to DM, and I got some questions.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is that with Terrence, my man Terrence?
Yes, Terrence,
Yeah.
on our channel, on our cooperative,
Nice.
Rain Cooperative.
That's my guy. David.
Yeah, save TikTok. Eric Adams is a cop. Local elections matter. Listen to Jay and I run our mouths. Call me Limbo. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Call Me Limbo Pod.
All right. Chris, take us out.
I just want to say thank you very much. I had no idea what I was getting into with this, but it was a lot of fun. I wish we could go longer. Like, it was a blast. I'll do this anytime. Like, it was amazing.
Oh, I'm holding you to it because we're going to take a month break. I'm going to be dotting the I's and crossing T's on the mutual aid party. Big things coming, but we're going to take May off and then coming back. And I'm definitely going to be inviting you, Chris, and we're going to have some more fun. Everybody, you could have been here. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I appreciate you spending that time with us. Much love. Adios, everybody.